The following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and someone who wishes they were still on vacation.
Who's that?
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. The dead are coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, an all Walking Dead universe podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And this is podcast episode number 266. This week we're discussing two episodes of Tales of the Walking Dead Season 1. We're going to be discussing Episode 4, Amy/Dr. Everett, and Episode 5, Davon. And what we're going to do, we've done this in the past, folks. If you're new to the podcast, if we're doubling up like this, because, you know, I was on vacation last week. When we double up like this, we follow our same format, except we split it in half. So we will do our quick thoughts, episode description, points on episode 4. And then when we're finished, we'll do exactly the same thing for episode 5. We try to keep it as short as possible because we are long in the tooth on a good day. And since we know we're discussing 2 episodes, we tried to limit ourselves to just like 5 main points. I think we have like 4 in a couple of these sections. So we tried to limit it to just the top things we wanted to talk about each episode. So just, it's still going to be long. I'm not going to lie. So quickly, let's just talk, get started on episode 4, which was the Amy/Dr. Everett. Steve, why don't you go first? What were your initial thoughts on episode 4?
Okay, well, first of all, welcome back.
Thanks. I know I was missed.
Oh yeah, your walkabout was epic, and we're glad you returned safely. So
thanks.
And if anything's missing from your house, just remember I have an alibi that will work out in court. So
okay, good to know.
Yes. This episode, I think that Anthony Edwards is great, and I think we were all excited because, oh my God, Anthony Edwards is going to be in. That's going to be great, and he did a fine job. But like I was telling you before we started, the whole episode, there were so many things that they didn't explain, and it, at least to me, wasn't readily apparent as to why things were happening or the situation or whatever. It wasn't explained enough. And ultimately, I came away from this episode feeling that there was no way that this episode and the people and the events and the locations of this episode exist in the main Walking Dead universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a disconnect there, and that what we saw on this show was like an alternate Earth, right? It was a multiverse episode, and that there's another Earth where there's a zombie apocalypse, and that's where this happened. Because there were too many things that didn't make sense, and it just, in general, I'm just like, wait, how did they get this dead sector? What? And anyway, so ultimately, I was disappointed in it. I did not think it was one of the better ones of this 6 episodes. I think this is probably one of my least favorite of the 6, and that's with Anthony Edwards in there. So I just overall, I think I was more disappointed with it than anything. That I was expecting it to be better because of him, and then I got through it and I was like, oh. Well, that wasn't very good at all. So, what did you think?
I felt kind of the same way. I think my expectation level was high because of Anthony Edwards, like you said, and unfortunately, I don't think they met that. And it's not that it was a bad story, but like you said, we were told that these all exist in the same world. So we're not in Atlanta, but we're someplace else in the USA experiencing the same sort of timeline things that our main show people are experiencing as well. So 10 years in, it's this to this guy, or it's this to this woman, whether it's this episode or some other episode. So whatever part of the timeline they're on, they're experiencing it, April of 2015 is the same, Anyway, so my point is that I agree with you. Like, the trench thing and some of the other stuff just didn't feel like it resided in the same world. And the things that could have resided in the same world, like the unknown big bad that was out there that was doing bad things, blah, blah, blah. Like it didn't pull me in enough. Like there wasn't anything interesting enough about it. So I don't know. It's same as you. I wanted it to be more than it ended up being. Didn't really hold my attention too much. I love Anthony Edwards, and I still love Anthony Edwards. I think he was really the only good thing. I thought he did a decent job with this, character with what he was given. And we've talked before about, it's an anthology, so this is it. You're not going to get like 6-episode arc on Dr. Everett. This is it. You're just going to get this 45 minutes. So I think he did okay. We got a little bit of his backstory. We got a little bit of who he is now and how he is this person and how he sort of became who he is. But it wasn't anything really, compelling, unfortunately. And it's a shame because you took someone who has some of the best dramatic TV chops out there and can certainly carry heavy duty stuff, and they just gave him something that wasn't quite as heavy duty,
Well, they gave him the like cold, emotionless scientist role. So, we never got to see him, being sad or depressed or crazy. Or, I mean, he was just this kind of analytical, I'm doing it for the research. And it's just like, okay, anybody could have done that part.
Yeah, kind of detached from the whole thing, know. Which, that can be interesting, but, So, yeah, I'm not sure if I'm ready to label this the worst of the 6 so far.
Still got one more to go.
I know, still one more to go. To me, sadly, I still feel like the Terry Crews and Olivia Wilde one is... Olivia Munn, sorry, wrong.
Wrong Olivia.
Wrong Olivia. Olivia Munn one from the very first episode. To me, that to me was the most uneven out of all of them so far. But this is a close second to that, which is a shame.
What's funny is I was thinking about that first episode, and I the whole time ever since it aired, something kept nagging at me. Like, I know I've like seen that before, or some, you know what I mean? It was like a weird like deja vu almost kind of thing. And I finally figured it out. Do you know what that episode was? That episode was the zombie apocalypse version of The Sure Thing. I mean, it was the exact same story, right? You have the Terry Crews is the John Cusack character. He has the Sure Thing with his internet buddy that he's trying to go across country to visit, and he has to team up with the girl, and it's Daphne Zuniga's character from that, who they don't like each other at the beginning, right? It's oil and water, and they're at each other's throats, so to speak, because they don't like each other. But as they go through the hijinks of getting across the country, they become close, and then when he finally meets the Sure Thing, he doesn't want her, and he ends up leaving her. Now, in this case, she's crazeballs and he kills her, but still same kind of thing. And then the two of them end up together. I mean, the guy or gal who wrote that story just took the Sure Thing plot and just added a few ghouls in there.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. So yeah, I agree with you. I was a little disappointed. I kind of wanted more. I love me some Anthony Edwards, and he still holds a big place in my heart. He still does after this episode, but I think I just expectation-wise had higher expectations for it.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. I agree. The actors were fine. Writing let us down.
Yeah, that's true. Yep. Where have we heard that before? So moving on, we're going to jump into our thoughts. Before we do that, let's first get an episode description of Amy / Dr. Everett. Steve.
All right, so this week's episode of Tales of the Walking Dead is being brought to you by the Dead Sector. The perfect summer has a voice. If we listen close enough, we can hear it, moaning. It whispers, one more bite, one more scratch, one more bloody intestine. And it speaks softly through the cool nights, murmuring one more unripened nightshade berry, one more hot charcoal beverage, one more walk along the shore of a crystal blue waterway with a hungry alligator. The perfect summer is waiting. The perfect summer is the Dead Sector. Your trip begins at the man-made trench just west of the Chattahoochee River.
All right, after that, I'm not sure if the Dead Sector is someplace I really want to go. I feel like the music is telling me I want to go, but I don't know if it's someplace I want to go.
What I want to know is, did I succeed in channeling my inner Tim Allen?
I don't know. Pure Michigan. I don't know. Maybe you did. We'll never know. If people start arriving in somewhere in central U.S. going, I'm looking for the Dead Sector, then we'll know. We'll know.
All right. Well, that's true. Fingers are crossed.
Yeah, cross
All right,
fingers.
so the episode in question is Tales of the Walking Dead, episode 1.4. The title is Amy/Dr. Everett. And the description is, in a nature documentary set in the Dead Sector, and I'm using air quotes, a naturalist who studies walkers encounters a spirited settler. An unlikely respect is forged between the two as the settler tries to argue in favor of people taking back the land from the dead. And that is your episode description. Although I'm curious why they assume it's a nature documentary, because, I mean, it starts out kind of like a nature documentary with him doing the narration and you get all the footage of wildlife and stuff, but then it kind of just settles into a regular episode.
Yeah, I mean, he is documenting nature.
I guess, yeah.
I would call it in a science experiment set in Dead Sector. That's what it's more like to me.
Right, yeah. Anyway, whatever.
Anyway, so there's that. So before we get into our individual points, let's discuss writer-director, if we could, please, sir.
Okay. Well, it's funny, the two episodes we have, because we're also, like we said, we're covering Davon, and Davon has like the veteran writing directing team of Channing Powell, writer, and Michael Satrazemis as director, right? And both of them have written and directed tons of stuff in Walking Dead universe. Well, Amy, Dr. Everett, this is the rookie team right here.
Oh, there you go.
Our writer is a guy named Amadou Garba, and this is his first Walking Dead credit, so he's never worked in this universe before, but he does have a little bit of TV experience. He's written for other shows, a show called Happy, a show called The Sinner, Dr. Death, and The Girl from Plainville are his credits. So he has a few TV chops, but this is his first Walking Dead credit. And then our director is a gal named Haifa El Mansour. And if that last name sounds familiar, on The World Beyond, the girl who plays Hope is named Alexa Mansour, and it is spelled the same, but I'm pretty sure they're not related because she doesn't have an Al hyphen in front of the Mansour. But I thought
correct
that they have the exact same spelling. But anyway, this is her first Walking Dead credit, and she has a bunch of other things listed, other work that I had heard of, none of them. So I have no idea if these are independent films, if they're television, if they're whatever. But she worked on a show called Mary Shelley, which must be about the Frankenstein lady. She worked on a show called Napoli Ever After, The Perfect Candidate, The Society, and then Archive 81. And again, I've heard of none of those shows or films or whatever. But again, it's stuff she's done. So literally, like these are first timers. These are their first effort on Walking Dead, and almost their first effort in general, because not a lot of stuff. So that is our writer and director for Amy/Dr. Everett.
All right, so you and I, our first points about it are right off the bat. It's discussed in probably the first few minutes of the episode. They discuss what the dead sector is, and Dr. Everett gives a little bit more detail on it, saying that it's, in your note you put how big it is, 40 feet deep and 200-meter wide man-made trench spanning hundreds of miles. And the thing that we have to say is, like, how did they do this? Like,
Right.
How does this exist? That's our big problem with this episode, is how does something like that exist in the same world?
Right.
Because hundreds of miles, I mean, sure, that can be just the size of like a state, perhaps, but where would it be? And how could it be?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. There's a lot of, and who would build that trench?
Right.
Was it done before the apocalypse, and now it's captured some of the dead and now they're studying them because of it? Or was it dug after the apocalypse? And if that's the case, how and why? Like, why would you do that?
Yeah, well, it's not so much why, although that's a huge question I had, which is, did they build the dead sector to keep the dead out or to put the dead in? And they don't
Right.
really tell you. And the other thing is, again, in this universe, we're kind of led to believe that Rick Grimes goes into the coma, and then when he wakes up in episode 1, it's like literally 28 days later, right?
Right.
I mean, so you're talking about a month. And in that month, when he wakes up and is in that hospital, there is no organized government, army, anything left. It's all gone.
Right.
Right. And so they want us to believe that somehow in that 30-day period, while the whole world is falling apart, while the ghouls are rising in numbers and eating all of your workers and all of your supply chain people and all that stuff, somehow they are able to construct this, 40-foot deep, 200-meter wide, hundreds of miles long trench. And I mean, I just ask people, you've seen when the guys and the gals work on like repairing the road in your town or on the expressways or the highways near your house. It takes them 12 months to do like a mile.
Yeah.
And yet we're supposed to believe that they do hundreds of. I think it's just that I just laughed out loud. It's as preposterous as the Brad Pitt World War Z movie, where somehow the apocalypse starts and somehow like the next day Israel is able to build this like 80-foot wall around their entire country. and I mean, and it's a cool visual because the ghouls are like trying to get over it and they're like building their own like human pyramid, to try and climb up to the top. And it's really, but when you think about it, you're like, well, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's no way, And
Yeah.
I think maybe that's what they're saying here. It's just like, what, don't think about it too hard. Just watch the episode. But yeah,
Yeah.
that threw me right away where I'm like, what?
Yeah.
They did what? And then he never mentions it again about why the dead sector was set up, or very cryptic if he does. And so
yeah.
that struck me as just weird.
Especially since it was such a large part of what the whole episode was about, because the main conflict of the episode was Amy talking to Dr. Everett about being able to settle with it, because the whole point is that the dead sector is just, whatever they set it up for. It's just animals being observed and just zombies being observed, and no one's supposed to live in there. It's not for humans to live there. So their whole argument the whole time is she thinks they should be able to live there. He says no. So it's since it is all centered around that, you would think we would have gotten a little bit more detail about the whys and when it got set up and all of that other stuff. So it's kind of lazy that they didn't follow through on that, and they made it more of like this emotional yes no thing. But I can't get pulled into it if I don't know all the details of what they're kind of arguing about or what they're disagreeing on, because like I can't pick a side. So if I can't pick a side in an argument, I don't care about the argument, because I have no skin in the game. So,
Well, and you know, I think this is a good time just because we're not really going to go super in depth. So let me just ask a question that I wanted to get your answer on. Do you think that Amy and her people were actually there to settle, or do you think they were just skull hunters?
I I think they were just there to settle. I really do. But I think that there's some. I agree with you. There's some ambiguity there, and I don't know if it's ambiguous because of the writing, or is it ambiguous because we can't get all of the detail because it is an anthology show, so it's hard to get, detail about every little thing, and I get that.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. My gut puts me toward that they just wanted to settle.
Really?
And that it was, as she said, that they just wanted to settle and they were only doing what. And yes, I know that he found all those skulls or whatever, but it could have just been, them trying to, get some goodwill from these skull hunter people. I don't know, but we'll never know because the way everything ended. So I'm okay with stories that have no definitive answers at the end. Like, I'm okay with there being open-ended stuff, but I'm okay that it didn't sort of get resolved. There's other parts of the story that bothered me more than that.
Okay.
What do you think? Do you think the opposite?
Yes, yeah, I do, and I think that she was basically lying to him the whole time. I mean, they might have been there to settle, but I mean, they were definitely harvesting skulls and were part of whatever that crazy thing is, which we'll talk about. And the reason I say that is when the episode opens, we get that kind of narration bit with him, right, where we have all the wildlife footage.
Right.
And then when it cuts to the actual episode and she's kind of running for her life from the ghouls and he's, following her with the drone and all that stuff. The very first shot we get of her when she's out in the wilderness, she's holding a head in her hand and she drops it when the ghouls are closing in on her.
Right.
And so right away, again, if she's not out there collecting skulls, why is she collecting a skull?
Right.
So yeah, I totally thought that, again, maybe they were there to set up an outpost and quote unquote settle, but it was totally because they were the skull hunter people. That's what I took from it, that she was, she kind of lied because he turned his nose up to skull hunting so quickly that she's like, well, if he's going to help me, I got to not be them.
Right. I think that's the other thing. We've had a couple of these happen already on some of these episodes where we've debated, do you think it's this way or that way? Because it was left kind of vague in the episode. So, and I come back with like, I can see your side. I can totally see your side. I can totally see how that's possible. But I think, is that because they wanted to keep it vague because it's an anthology, or is it just poor writing? And it just became vague out of, it wasn't, the story wasn't serviced appropriately.
Yeah, I'm guessing it's a poor writing thing where, to the writer it makes total and perfect sense because it's their story. Of course. And it's like, well, I don't need to, and if they were to put anything else in there, then it's like, well, then I'm just hitting them over the head with it, Whereas the rest of us that don't have the writer's insight as to what they're trying to say, we're reading it going, huh?
Right. How are we supposed to know? We're not in your head.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So. I get it.
All right. So now let's talk about these skull hunter guys.
All right. So what do you think they were?
Well,
were they a big bad or?
I don't see. Again, this is where my head hurts about this episode because, so the skull hunter people like sneak into the dead sector so they can cut off the heads of ghouls, which they then take back out to the rest of the world and use them to like intimidate people or whatever he said, right? And my question is, have you seen the rest of the world? Are there not like 8 million trillion ghouls roaming around the rest? Why do you have to come into the dead sector to get them?
Right.
I mean, that makes zero sense to me, and she even keeps saying that to him during the episodes. Like, you've been in here a long time. You don't know how bad it is out there. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I don't think the writers know how bad it was out there. I mean, and again, that's where I just had a huge disconnect between what we're seeing here and what we've seen on all the other Walking Dead shows. I mean, I get it where, like, if like we had successfully contained the ZA and they built this sector and they just threw all the corpses in there and they're just like, nope, no one, it's like Escape from New York, right? They throw them in there, they guard the trench and they don't let any of them leave. I get it then how people, like in that awful Zack Snyder Army of the Dead movie, they sneak in past the military to go do their mission in there, and the goal is to kind of spirit out these skulls because people are willing to pay for them, and money still means something because the regular world hasn't completely fallen apart. But that's not what's going on. So why in God's name would you go through all the trouble of going over that trench and everything when it's just like you walk outside your door, there's a ghoul right there, and you hit him with a shovel and you take its head? I mean, did that make any sense to you?
No, not at all. But again, like you said, it's not explained appropriately. There's not enough story built around it. I mean, honestly, if they had taken the Skull Hunter thing out of it and just had her be part of a group that wanted to settle in there, and there's still conflict between her and the doctor, that would still play. That would still play as an idea, like this is this wildlife refuge and no people are allowed to live here and whatever. But then the other thing is like, are there other scientists? Like, who polices the dead zone?
Right. Yeah.
The dead sector or whatever. Like, is there a military that polices it? Like, how do you even know that someone's living there?
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, and then also, he's doing all this research for what?
Right.
I as soon as he started talking about, well, I got to keep going, and then like he tries to recruit her, and he's like, you could be my assistant, and then you could take over for me because I'm not going to be here and I just was immediately drawn to Romero's Day of the Dead when they're sitting around in the mine, and it's they're in the camper, right, and John and Sarah and everyone are around there, and John picks up this binder and he's like, they have all these records down here, and he's like, they've got all the statistics and every earthquake and every flood and all this, and he's pointing out all of the data that they have, and he's like, why? Who the hell's ever going to read it?
Yeah, nobody cares.
I mean, it's all crap. It's useless. That's the old world. The old world is gone. And I had the same exact reaction when he's like, no, I gotta do the research. And I mean, I understand if you're like trying to figure out a way to stop it from happening, and
but he never says what the research is for.
Yeah, he's just observing them.
Yeah.
And so that, and I mean, I totally understand the idea that, this guy cracked.
Yes.
And he's doing the research because it's the only thing he can think to do. And even though, it's never going to be read, it's never going to be published, it's never going to go anywhere, no one's ever going to see it, it's the only thing he can do, so he's just going to do it. You know what I mean? He's like, he's broken that way. I get that, but it just, at the same time, I'm like, okay, at least he didn't have an aquarium with a head in it, right? I mean,
right.
And as far as her and like the hunter thing, the only thing that I came up with about why even inserting the hunters, because you're right, they could have just told the story where they're just settlers and they're trying to move in there. The only thing I can think of is because he very, very passionately was like, I hate the skull hunters and they're evil and wrong. And so, and again, because we don't really know with her, is she a skull hunter or did she just kind of work with the skull hunters to get in there? Right. Because she kind of throws that story out there that like, oh, they helped us get across and all that stuff. Is that to give her character a little bit of ambiguity on purpose where it's like, we don't, Dr. Everett doesn't know. Is she a good guy or a bad guy? And
right.
add to the whole I don't trust you, I don't want you around, that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Whereas if she was just a settler and she's like, I just need help, you'd think he would just help her.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but again, you're right.
Yeah.
The Skull Hunter thing, I don't understand why that was in there, because it just makes zero sense to me the way they explained it.
Yeah. And the only thing it did is, like you said, it added this element of him not being able to trust her at all, like right off the bat.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of other less convoluted ways that you could have done the exact same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Without, yeah. I did want to make sure it's clear, like in terms of genre and story building, etc. I do enjoy the scientist angle. I enjoy, like, anytime they show like a scientist who's studying the ghouls in some way, or taking down data in some way, or trying to learn more so that they can, even all the way back to Milton and the governor, he was just trying to, he was trying to prove some things. He had some scientific hypotheses, I find that interesting, rather than just accepting that this is a part of your life. It's like, well, we can learn from them, or, try and again, it's not about finding the cure and all of that stuff. Although, obviously with Jenner in season 1, that's what that was.
Sure.
But yeah, I do appreciate that. I think it's an interesting angle. I just wish that they'd done it more effectively in this one. That's all. I like when they go down that road. I just, if you build the character in like a cold, unfeeling way, then I don't care what it is they're doing. Yeah. He could have been a Vegas showgirl, for crying out loud. It wouldn't have mattered, because you built him as this unfeeling, uncaring person, because he didn't jump in right away to try and help Amy. He just observed her, like all that stuff, and they made him really sort of cold and distant, like you were saying. So why would we care about his research and the things he's trying to do if we can't empathize and care about him?
Yeah, I mean, they made it very clear the only reason that he saved her, quote unquote, air quotes, at all, is because she was mucking with Subject 21.
Yes.
And he was doing it to protect that. He wasn't doing it to help her.
Yeah.
He would have, if that wasn't Subject 21, he would have totally let them eat her.
Yeah.
And never did any, he'd be like, yes, whatever. Because again, what does he say? You can't interfere. Nature has to take its course and all that stuff. But yeah, why they didn't write. I mean, you think they could have written just a much more interesting character where, I mean, he says he's been out there for 7 years, right? Why is he not talking to himself? I mean, I'm around people all the time, and I talk to myself all the time. You know what I mean? So here he is completely by himself. He doesn't even have a TV. He can't even like watch a DVD or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he, why doesn't he have like a picture of his, dead wife or the other scientist that died along the way? And he has full on conversations with them about his research. You know what I mean? And then this real person comes into his life and he's like, I don't know what to do. Because that's been so long. We didn't get any of that. He was very well adjusted for basically being a hermit.
Yeah.
And, totally avoiding humankind. So there were so many things they could have done, I thought, to make him, much more interesting. And like you said, like we said, he's not just this cold, I'm just doing it for the science because science is all we have. You can still have a scientist that believes that, but still is emotional and has, emotional beliefs, and they can come out, So I don't know. I think the big point here is we did not like the writing in this episode.
Yes, that is true.
But I agree with you. I love the scientist angle. I think it's for the Walking Dead universe, it has been done before, but not very much.
Yeah. And it's interesting when it is done, when you can see people researching and doing stuff and gathering data, even on a small scale. It's interesting.
See, and again, there was, I thought, a real point, a chance for them to really, have a nice exchange where, she should have been more vocal of like we just said, who's ever going to read this crap? and then
Exactly.
give him a chance to, put his 2 cents in as to why he's doing it. And if it's crazy, it's crazy, but we never even got that.
Yeah.
I mean, other than the only thing we got was the, science is the only way we're going to survive or not survive. That was as far as he went into why, he's doing it. But yeah.
Yeah, I like we just said in like 10 different ways. I just wish there was more to it.
Yeah.
You listed a couple of things that you enjoyed on there as well. So why don't you try and hit one of your like actual positives?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the best part of the whole episode was the alligator. I definitely enjoyed the irony that, poor Anthony Edwards, cuts his forehead open and like screws up his ankle or his knee falling down that hill trying to save that stupid ghoul. And then he's able to somehow throw the rope and it works. I don't know if you've ever tried to throw a lasso before, but
I've never seen someone get it appropriately so quickly. Usually it takes about 40 tries,
unless they're like a full blown, wearing like chaps cowboy.
Yeah.
Right? Then maybe, but I mean, for like a normal non-cowboy person, yeah. And he gets it on throw number 2. And then as he's trying to pull the stupid thing back, the alligator comes up and eats it. I laughed. I thought that was fun.
I laughed out loud. It was so funny.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they meant for it to be funny or if it was supposed to be, because if you think about it, here he is trying to preserve this thing. And it's this wildlife refuge and blah, blah, blah. And it's literally the wildlife that ruins his research subject. Yeah. And so it's like the place he lived sort of coming back to sort of bite him in the ass, literally. But to me, I was like, I understand that there's like a large thematic thing that happened here. But to me, it was hilarious.
I did. I thought it was funny. I did.
Yeah.
And just ironic.
Yeah.
In that, yes, it wasn't. Subject 21 wasn't killed by skull hunters, wasn't killed by humans, the thing that he desperate to keep out of the dead sector. It was all this friggin' nature he's so happy about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, that was
fun. Yeah.
What about you?
One last thing that I wanted to talk about, which was I did enjoy this part. So it's funny. I think it's the concept of the episode and all this like the skull hunters thing that was just too much and we didn't like it. But there were a handful of things we did like, and I did like one thing, which is I felt like they ended it on a downer of an ending, and I thought that bravo to them for doing it that way, because I feel like his realization that all of her, it's not just that she was turned into a ghoul, but all of her people were. All of that whole group of people were, and they just didn't make it. And so I just thought it was a tragic thing, and he didn't really, I don't know if he learned anything or if there was any kind of lesson or whatever, but it was just like he went right back to doing what he was doing before.
Oh yeah, he was going to turn her into Subject 22.
Yeah. So I liked that they, and someone may look at that and go, oh, uplifting. He's going to be with Amy forever. She is his assistant and whatever. And I'm like, is it uplifting or is it really tragic that he made a connection with someone who's a human and it just didn't work again? Yeah. So it's like, I appreciated that. And I'm not saying that these episodes have tied up everything with a neat little bow. But this was pretty much it was a pretty dark ending.
Oh, this is very bleak.
Yeah.
This is the bleakest out of all of them so far, without a doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. So I appreciated that they took it took cojones to do that. Especially to take, like we said, this actor who's beloved, and put him in this role where he doesn't have a lot of emotion, and then have it be like the most tragic ending out of all of them. So yeah, that did take some balls. So I got to give him that for the cojones.
Yeah.
So there's that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, he when Subject 21 gets eaten and that sequence happens, right, and she decides she's going to go back to her people, he like specifically tells her that, like, you know, they're like right in the migration route of these massive herds, and so if you go back there, you're going to die. And she's like, I don't care. So she goes back there, and then she, like, did she not tell anyone? I mean, why did they, you know, why wasn't she like, oh my God, we have to get out of here? But she didn't.
This guy who knows a lot about this told me that we're in the middle of a big migration area. Yeah,
well, he's been here studying them for 7 years. You know what? The one time you can trust what a stranger says is there.
Yeah.
and apparently she did nothing, because they, you know, when he finally goes over there and finds her and all of them, and they've all been eaten, you know, the camp or whatever looks exactly like it is when she gets there.
Yeah.
So you're just like, would you just come in and be like, hey guys, you got anything to eat? I mean, you know what I mean? It's just like,
literally.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, come on. So yeah, I thought that was a little weird. But you're right. I thought it was, at least it didn't have kind of the happy, upbeat ending of the first two, or the kind of ambiguous ending of the Samantha Morton one. You know, where, you know, we're kind of like, okay, so now she's a whisperer. You know, this one was much more of, hey, the emotional one, the one that actually had a positive outlook on the future, is dead.
Yep. That's that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciated that.
Right.
Any other points that we want to talk about with episode 4? We did a good job on this one. I think you got one more that we didn't hit.
Just a line that I liked when, you know, she as after he saves her and she's like following him, right, and you know, she keeps complaining that her stomach hurts and she's sick and all this stuff, and ultimately it's revealed when he finally lets her into his ranger station cabin that she's been eating these like unripened nightshade berries, and they're like poisonous if you do that. And so he's like, you've been basically killing yourself for the last couple of days. And so he makes this drink out of like charcoal and all these things that are basically going to make you want to throw up, so she can get all of it out of her stomach, you know.
Yeah.
And so he gives it to her, and he says something like, the next 24 hours are going to be unpleasant for both of us. And then he looks at her and he goes, but mostly for you. And I thought that was a fun line. I thought that was pretty cool. So,
especially since we're so used to Anthony Edwards having like a really nice bedside manner when it comes to like being sick or whatever. So for him to be that blunt about it, you're like, this is not Dr. Green.
No, it's not Dr. Green. You know, it's he's basically saying, yeah, you gonna be puking in the bucket, and I'm going to be over there not puking in the bucket. So.
But just listening to you puke in the bucket, which that's enough to actually do it sometimes, depending on, you know, what your constitution is like. So
I tell ya, can be bad.
Gross. I know, gross. All right, so that kind of wraps it all up. Anything else to hit on episode 4 before we move it on along?
Again, no. I think it was another one of those episodes that just, I think the writing let us down, and you know, undeveloped concepts, kind of half-baked stuff, and I think we were expecting it to be more fully baked. Yeah.
Yep, you didn't bake the bread all the way. It was a little mushy in the middle, though. Let me tell you.
It was. A little yeasty.
Yeah, a little yeasty. Well done. So let's move on then to episode 5. And you went first last time, so you want me to go first on our quick thoughts? Man, we were talking before we started recording, and I only got a chance to watch this episode once, which I'm actually disappointed in, because the more I think about it, since I watched last night, I keep thinking on it. I like it more and more. I really, really do. I really enjoyed this episode. It was by no means perfect. There were some issues here and there, which we'll get to, but overall it was genre, and it felt like this could have happened in this world somewhere. It felt rooted in the world of Walking Dead. It felt it was actually creepy and scary, which hasn't happened yet for this series. So I easily think that this is my favorite of the 6 so far. We still got one more to go. So, the next episode, it's got a lot to live up to, though. I thought the scenery, the moods they created, the filming style, the music, the back and forth with the flashbacks and you don't know what's really happening, what's going on. The confusion of it was actually really sort of exciting. I really, 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 really liked it. How about you?
When I agree. I like this one a lot. What I told you before we started is I think this is the best one of the 5 so far. This pushed past the Blair/Gina Groundhog Day episode into the lead in terms of overall quality and enjoyment for me. And when I first watched it, because I watched them twice. First, and the way I did it this time around is I watched the Anthony Edwards one, and then a few days later I watched this one, and then I watched them again last night when I was putting my notes together. So not the normal routine for me, but that's how I did it. And literally when I got done watching it the first time, I was like, wow, 2 episodes back to back that I couldn't see where these places fit into the Walking Dead universe. It just didn't seem like the same place. And so then when I rewatched the Anthony Edwards one, I went, yeah, that still holds true. That episode, I don't know what universe that's in, but it's not the Rick Grimes universe. It's just not the same place. I'm sorry. And then when I watched this one, though, the second time through, and of course I had the subtitles on so I could, see what they're saying and stuff. I went, oh, and it made a lot more sense to me relationship wise with the rest of the show. And it's like the Montreal version of Alexandria. Right. Although technically they're in Maine, they make a point of saying that. But you know what I mean? It's like this little teeny town, little village way, way, way up north in Vermont or Maine or wherever, and where there's not a lot of people in general. So there's not going to be a lot of ghouls roaming around. Right. And this little town they built a wall and they got a gate and they keep everybody out, or most people out, and they're surviving however they can. And once I had that information and I kind of analyzed it and processed it, I'm like, oh, okay. And, they're little wackadoodles, sure, but okay. I could see that. They're on their own. They're doing what they're. And I love this episode. So I really enjoyed a lot of the stylistic choices they did with the flashback stuff. And whenever you've got like not just the crazy psycho killer, but then you have the crazy psycho killer's mom who's covering for the crazy psycho killer, to me that's a win-win. Yeah. So yeah, I like I said, I think there's so many good things going for this episode, and once I watched it that second time and I really kind of processed, I guess the first time I watched it, I must not have been paying enough attention. Yeah. And so I missed some little tidbits that I'm like, oh, well, that explains that. And, oh, that explains that. And suddenly I'm like, this episode's really good. So I'm right there. I'm sitting right next to you there in that I really enjoyed this episode a lot.
Ah, good. I love when we both like something and we can talk about it, because then it's much more exciting. So let's get into our finer points. And again, let's discuss the episode description we were given. So go ahead with that, sir.
All right. Well, this week's episode, which is funny because we're in the same week, but you know what I mean. This week's episode of Tales of the Walking Dead is being brought to you by the Strawberry Council. Well, get ready, boys. Tighten up your fake leg, bandage your bloody head, and get ready to run for your lives from an angry mob. Those French gals are getting the things they need, like vitamin C, manganese, potassium, and a healthy dose of antioxidants from the food they love. Strawberries. It's what's for dinner. Just don't put them in a salad or we'll dip your face in acid.
Well, I've always really liked strawberries. Maybe I like them a little less now. I don't know.
Come on now.
Something about that southern twang. I don't know.
It's what's for dinner.
No. And it just makes me want to have beef. Because that's what's for dinner. Actually, it's pizza, but you know how it is.
Pizza, you could have sausage on it. You never know.
I could have not on my pizza.
You could have hamburger, beef bouillon.
I like bacon on my pizza. I'm just saying.
Wouldn't that be pig though, not beef?
Yeah, but I didn't say I was having beef. I said I was having pizza.
Well, you just said you're having beef for dinner, and then you said no, I mean pizza, and I said, well, no, that's not. Anyway.
Okay. Anyway, as we digress.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. That apparently in the apocalypse it's strawberries. So. Yes,
apparently.
So the episode in question is Tales of the Walking Dead, episode 1.5, Davon. And the description is, in a noirish fractured memory thriller, a young stranger suddenly wakes up in a dangerous foreign town with no memory of how he got there. He must piece together fragments of his broken mind to uncover why the townspeople accuse him of murder.
I think you mean... Oh, I was just going to say, I think when you say murder, you mean murder. Like with the pinky and the tip of the mouth, like that kind of murder. Is that what it meant?
Murder, yeah.
Murder, yes. That's probably the more correct
and they even had the Frenchman to be the accuser at that one, when they have him in the van and they're going to smush it with the digger.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, they pulled out all the French stops in this one.
They did. So let's talk, before we get into points, let's talk writer-director first as well.
Davon, we are going to tie you up and then beat you with the French bread. Okay,
nice.
So like I said when we were talking about the Anthony Edwards one, that episode had the rookie team. This is again the all-star veteran team, and this is Channing Powell, the writer, and Michael Satrazemis, the director. And we've been talking about these guys a lot because they were the same team for episode 1.2, Blair Gina. They did 1.3D, and they did this one. So,
nice.
These guys, they've been around for a lot of this show. Channing Powell is an executive producer, as well as Michael Satrazemis. So clearly they have a lot of skin in the Tales of the Walking Dead game. And and we can recap if you want. Channing Powell's written 18 episodes of the main show. He's written a couple episodes of Fear, and then these two of Tales of the Walking Dead. And Michael Satrazemis is directed 17 episodes of the main show, 20 episodes of Fear, and then these 3 of Tales. So again, these guys have massive chops in the Walking Dead universe. And I think, like we were saying, the other 2 episodes, kind of mixed reaction. Blair Gina, I think we liked. I think the Whisperer one with D, we kind of liked it, but not as much as maybe we thought we would have. And then this one, I think this is where they really hit it out of the park, and it all came together for them.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah,
very much agreed.
That's your writer and director.
Awesome. I would say. We talked about how much we liked it, but I will say it did take a little bit to get the setup sort of going. So in the beginning, you're like, "What the hell's going on here? What the hell's going on here?" And I was there was a lot of I was watching it with my wife, and I was nervous the whole time until things got really set up, because I'm like, she's gonna start asking me questions, and I'm gonna get pissed off because she'll be like, "What's going on?" I'll be like, "I don't know. Nobody knows.
That guy?
Don't
Who's
ask.
That guy?
Nobody knows. Nobody knows." So it did take a little bit, but I think that now on reflection, I'm like, we were sort of in his world. We didn't know who he was. the closed captioning made me aware that, the people in the woods in the beginning were like, Davon, he's this way. I'm like, okay, so he's Davon. That seems like that's a possibility, but not knowing like how he got there, who the woman is that's attached to him. You can't really tell what she looks like. Something wrong with her face. Like, how did this happen? Why is he attached to her? Like, what is this story? Like, how is it going to come together? And like, so that first like 5 to 10 minutes where you're like, where the F are we? What is going on? The more I thought about it, I was like, as much as it took a little bit to set up, I feel like we were in Devon's shoes in the beginning. Like, it needed to be confusing because you needed to be just as unsettled as he was.
Yeah.
He wakes up.
Don't you mean we're in his shoe?
Yeah. Well, there was a second shoe on that really bizarre. And can we talk about the fake leg?
The spring leg?
Yeah. Because first of all, I get it. Like, I made a note about it where I'm like, I get that they were doing with what they had. And I'm sure, since they showed they had some large pieces of machinery here and there, a big spring like that could be like the, part of a strut or something for some big, front end loader or something like that. Totally possible. And I get that you're doing with, what you've got. But to have revealed it in the first scene when you don't know what's going on and you're like,
did he take his leg off?
Did he just take his leg off? And was it a really big spring?
Yeah.
What is going on here? And again, like, it added to the confusion of it and you don't know what's going on. But it took me out of the scene for just a hot second because I was like, did that just happen? Or did I make that up in my head? And then I was like, how and why would I make up a fake leg that was made out of a big spring like that? I can't even imagine how that would end up in my head without someone placing it there. So I was like, no, that actually happened. I didn't imagine it. So it was really ridiculous. Well, and I'm glad you agree with me.
Oh, it was because you're just like, literally, you're like, huh? When you're like, what is that? Then first you're like, did he just take his leg off? And then it's like, why is his leg a spring? So you're like, there's so many weird things. But I think what we're supposed to get from that is that the two gals, Nora and Amanda, which I'm guessing they're sisters, right? They took that spring from that car that's in the garage and made that leg when they cut off his other one. And because you see in the flashback, they're like working on his wounded leg when he first shows up. And that's why that big bucket of corrosive liquid is sitting next to the car, because they clearly were disassembling it to get that part. That's what I think. I could be totally wrong, but that's what I took from the setup. Again, it's kind of, they don't really come out and tell you how they did it. It's just, that's what I got from that. But you're right. It's when the show opens, and again, I think this is on purpose. They want to make it very hard to understand, because they don't want to give the show away. They don't want to give the circus away, right? They don't want to, they don't want us to know right away that he didn't do it. We want to give a little doubt in the audience's mind as well as his, because when he wakes up or when he comes to or whatever happens when that episode starts, he's like clearly like, I have no idea who I am. I have no idea where I am. I have no idea why I have a spring for a leg. And I have no idea why I'm chained to this ghoul that I'm now going to have to put down. And then it's going to start talking to me. You know, so I think that was all on purpose. But what did you think about that choice? That Amanda starts, telling him where to go.
Amanda tells him where to go.
Yeah, because he wakes up and he's chained to her.
Oh, the Zed Amanda. Yes.
Yeah, and he smacks her with this leg, and then she then looks at him and starts talking to him.
I don't know. I still say, I think that the talking Zed was a manifestation. I don't think it was really.
No, he was hallucinating. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it was his subconscious was reaching back to things that might help jog his memory. And when you have a traumatic experience, the number one thing that he needed to get back to was that cellar, because the cellar was the source of everything bad that happened in the episode.
Mm-hmm.
So by sending him back to the house, by saying the house number, they were sort of
897.
Right. They were sort of, it was just the part of his psyche that was able to let him know you need to go here because that's, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing that you need to,
well,
do next.
And also there's familiarity. He clearly spent a lot of time in that house. And so it was his subconscious, saying, that's a place that you remember, that where to go type thing. But yeah, I again, super weird when it happens, because not only does the ghoul talk, but like, she gets up and starts walking with him. And I'm like, ooh, how is that happening?
Yeah.
But I thought it was fun. I thought it was, again, that this episode is so in that dude's head that it made sense to me. I at first I was weirded out just because I was, just like you, trying to piece together all the hands. But I thought it was great.
And the other thing that sort of points it in that direction, where they were sort of trying to help you at least see that her talking thing was a manifestation in his head, was they made such a point of making, we see how the injury happened later with the face, but they made it a point to show you that the reason he wasn't bit is because she didn't have any teeth or face, like that portion. Like she was basically just like gumming him.
Yeah.
Which is gross. Yeah. But she also sort of had like this flap of skin that was because her face pretty much melted over to her mouth. So she couldn't have even, ghouls can't talk, but this one couldn't have been talking anyway because there's no mouth going on right now because the way the skin melted and blah, blah, blah. So, and I thought that was so creepy looking. Anytime you have some kind of horror or sci-fi movie that shows like, wasn't that that's a Twilight Zone episode with the mouth being covered with the skin, that old like black and white one. I can't remember the episode, but there's like, you come upon these people that are like, their mouths are completely covered. It's just really bizarre. And there's a thing in Handmaid's Tale recently where they had, some of the people that were more conservative than some of the other areas of the country that had handmaids. They went so far as to sew their handmaids' mouths shut so that they couldn't speak. You don't have to worry about them speaking ill if they couldn't speak. So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So anytime you do something that makes it so that physically you can't speak, whatever it is, like it's so fascinating. It's such a creepy thing, to think about not being able to communicate no matter what, Well,
it's kind of a dead thing anyway, that morticians and funeral directors and stuff, when they prepare a body for the funeral, it's very common for them to sew the mouth shut.
Oh yeah.
So, it just kind of adds to that. You're right. That kind of unsettling, because it's not, it's not normal. People have mouths that they open and they can make sound and communicate with. And when someone can't, not because they're mute or their vocal cords have been damaged, but because their mouth is just not, even like you said, it's been completely removed. They just don't have a mouth, or in this case, it's been burned, melted to the point where it doesn't really function, or like we were just saying with Handmaid's Tale, where they physically actually stitch them shut.
Yeah.
It's very unsettling and creepy.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was really well done. I loved that. Mm-hmm. I wanted to make sure, we really like the vibe of it too. So the, from the filming style, where it was like sort of like that sort of burned out film look, for the style of the filmmaking was one thing. And then also the use of like, the lighting, very noir. And then also like the very, the music chosen. I loved that French piece they used later on. And it just, everything was sort of like came together. Like it was the perfect sort of genre episode of this show. It was great. It was, God, just the vibe and the feeling of it alone was just so wonderfully done.
Oh yeah, I loved it. The flashbacks, I thought, again, some wonderful choices by Satrazemis in the style, in that you could immediately tell. I mean, you could tell anyway, because everybody wasn't trying to kill him, but you could also tell that you were in a flashback, because they they treated those sequences so they looked like you said, like old. You're watching an old movie, complete with the scratches on the film. Yeah, which I thought was fun. And then they also, you could tell they put they like rolled off some of the high end of the audio, so it kind of had that almost kind of talk like that, where it's clearly not like this. It's not, you can tell something is off with it. It doesn't sound like normal time, current time, regular time. And then the memories would play out, and then once they got as far as he would remember at that moment, then the film would burn. You get that burn effect of like the film stopping, and of course the light of the heat of the light bulb is actually burning the film. And again, for a lot of our audience, I'm sure they're like, that could happen. Yeah, it could.
Yes.
For people that remember, watching, 16 or 8 millimeter home movies, or movies you would go get from the library or whatever, that would totally happen when the reel stops spinning.
Yep.
So yeah, and so I agree. I love that choice. I thought that was really fun, and I love the jazz score. Yeah. That punctuated it. The French piece was really cool too, but I liked, for the initial part of it, for the first 20 minutes, you kind of had that do 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 do, that kind of thing, and it really played into, like you said, that kind of noirish, all it needed was him to do a narration of like, this is the village. There are hundreds of stories here, but this one is mine. You know what I mean? It's just almost, that's all they needed. And so, yeah, I loved all that stuff. I loved the look of it. I loved the vibe of it. And there was just enough of the creepy in it to remind you that it's a horror story, that it's not a detective story.
And I appreciated the way they, like you were saying, like with the film, and there'd be like the burn and whatever. And sometimes it would be like a bright light and things like, I liked that. We're so used to seeing things that are so like slap you over the head. It's like, we're in color right now, so we're in present tense. We're in muted tones, so this is a flashback, So it's like it stylistically fit together a lot better. Like it was less, like I said, it was less slap you over the head with it. And it was much more subtle. You still got a sense of where you were. I mean, at least I did. So I just thought visually it was much more interesting than just doing something easier than like, it'll have a red tinge when we're in the front, in present day, and this one it'll be muted and gray, and and I know we've seen Walking Dead do that kind of stuff before when they've gone into flashback and stuff like that, and other shows employ it, but they just they did something more artistically and visually interesting in this one, which I really liked.
Yeah, they did, but I kind of like that they also, I don't know if you picked up on this, but they kind of hedged their bets, and they did what to me is kind of like it must be like the number one thing in like the director's handbook of, if you're doing a story with flashbacks, what you do is you give your main character a head wound. Yeah. And then
to explain it away. Yeah.
Well, not just to explain it away, but to help let the audience know, are we in the present day or are we in a flashback? Because in the present day, he has a big bandage on his head, and in the flashbacks, he doesn't. And I've seen that in 2 other similar styled stories. One is Sliding Doors with Gwen Paltrow. Yeah. And that she gets mugged. And so in the one timeline, she has this big gash on her forehead where the mugger like pushes her down and she hits her head. And in the other one, where she doesn't get mugged, she doesn't. And in a show on Netflix called 13 Reasons Why, the main character, this kid, he wipes out on his bicycle. He's a high school kid, and so he has a big gash on his head, and that's how you can tell is he in the present day, or are we seeing a flashback to this girl telling the story about why she's killing herself? It's like the standard formula choice, I guess, is you give your guy or gal a head wound, and then for some of the audience, it's a way for them to go, oh, okay, this is the past, or okay, this is the alternate reality or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But,
some kind of, yeah. I mean, and there was the head wound, which was, like you said, is a little bit tropey. But I followed the clothes too. He was wearing that red jacket. So, whenever he didn't have the red jacket, I knew he was, but even so, I see what you mean though. Absolutely.
But what was really kind of fun because, like for you were able to clue in on it because of the stylistic choices of the way they treated the audio and the video for those sequences. But they threw that thing in there just in case there are people out there that are like, I don't understand. When is this happening? Because there are people out there that are like, I don't get it, And so this is just another way for them to be like, see, he doesn't have the head wound. So he's clearly not, okay, so yeah.
Yeah. No. I get that. I totally do. It happened right up in the beginning, so I wanted to make sure that I hit this thing too, which is in the beginning they show him, he ends up carrying who we find out later is Amanda. Mm-hmm. He's carrying Amanda, ghoul Amanda, and he carries her back into their sort of enclosed village or whatever. He comes up upon the houses. It's nighttime. The houses all have like lanterns on around the the porches, etc. But it's night, and the way he comes upon the house and then like turns and comes onto the porch of the house, whatever. It's literally a shot for shot like absolute homage to M. Night Shyamalan's The Village. If you haven't seen it, then go out and see it. I still say it's one of his betters. I love it because it's a very like world building kind of without giving anything away. But the action takes place in this walled village, which is very similar to this group. And they have like these old fashioned houses, and everything is lit by like gas or oil lanterns on the outside at night.
Well, it's like set in this like not modern times. You know what I mean? Like they're all they're all wearing Amish clothes and they're churning their own butter, and I mean it's all set up. I kind of got that vibe too. I mean, I of course also had a really strong sense to vomit because I don't like that movie, but I did get it. And particularly with the two girls, with Nora and Amanda, because they like dress like they're in the village.
Exactly. And I think that was confusing in the beginning, because at first I felt like this was a throwback. Like, is he imagining everything? Because it looks like they're dressed from like the olden times. But then when it becomes clear that this is an established village, and then it's clear that like, oh, okay, they're using the oil lamps because it's the apocalypse and they don't have any electricity. And you can explain away the outfits and stuff like that, because once you get to a point where there's no more clothes, you're going to have to start making your own clothes.
Oh, yeah, I know. Yeah. It made total sense. But you're right. It was very weird because you see them and they look like, hey, we're just got off the Mayflower, and then you go into their house and they have a car in the garage and they have like electronics and stuff that don't work, but they're on the, they've got a TV and all these, kind of old world, like our old world stuff. Technology is there. So yeah. And then you're like, huh? And then you, like you said, you realize, oh, okay. Yeah. You know what? They're not in Delaware, Texas. So there isn't an unlimited supply of gasoline and batteries and electricity that just works all the time here. And so, like you said, they're, having to resort to kind of that, kind of cowboy, 19th century technology of, they make their own candles now. And, they do all that stuff that they could figure out how to do with what they have. so they can, have some kind of light at night, and all that. And like you said, they're making their own clothes now, and so it's not going to be, blue jeans and flannel shirts and stuff like that. It's going to look like they looked. And again, I totally bought it. I was like, all right, I get it. That's cool.
Yeah, agreed. And it did exactly what, some of the other things did. It unsettled you. It put you off kilter. You didn't, okay, they took him in, but who are these people and why does it seem like they're from a different time period? And and as things get more explained and are more clear, you get more of the, more of a sense. But in the beginning, like, these little things are sort of peppered in there, and they're meant to sort of keep you on edge. And I think they did a really great job with that, because I didn't know what the hell was going on. I also too wanted to make sure, like, a lot of people don't like when a storytelling style includes flashbacks and it goes back and forth and whatever. I like it a lot. I've always really liked a flashback sort of format, and because this did nothing but go back and forth, that's another reason I really liked it. I enjoy a non-linear story, non-linear timeline sort of story. So yeah, there's that.
I do too. The only thing stylistically that I've had my fill of and would be happy if they stopped doing is, I'm really sick of the shows that will start with some dramatic moment and then it will fade out and then it'll say 36 hours earlier.
Yeah.
And I'm tired of that. That's like,
yeah, I'll agree with that. That's a little bit of a trope.
Yeah.
You get the, I totally know what you mean. Very dramatic moment. Someone's standing over someone with an axe, and the next thing, it fades away, and then it's like 4 days before the events we just saw, and you're like, yeah.
And so then you're watching the story, and then in the back of your mind you're like, okay, so somehow those two dim bulbs have to end up, wanting to kill each other in the next 40 minutes, because that's where they were when we first saw that, So yeah, I've had enough of that. But I agree. I do not mind this kind of storytelling. And I think part of that it goes into why you and I, for the most part, really enjoyed the show Lost.
Yeah.
In that, Lost started out with a totally set of bizarre, unexplainable circumstances, and then during the course of the season really tried hard to not explain any of it with flashbacks. And I think we really liked that. So that was a cool storytelling device that was that whole show. And so when we see it in other shows, we're like, ooh, it reminds me of Lost. And so I think that's one of the reasons why we both like it. So.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. So there's that. Let's see. I think I covered most of my stuff. You've got a few things in there too that you wanted to talk about. Let's make sure we cover everything.
I loved it when he comes into the house and she's still chained to his wrist, and that 16th century chains, right? I mean, that was not like a pair of handcuffs, you know what I mean? That was like heavy duty, old school thing. And so he's like, well, I got to get this. I can't drag this corpse around with me. So he picks up that hacksaw and he just cuts her hand off.
Nice.
I got a kick out of that. I'm like, oh, he's giving her a hand, but I'm pumped, it just made sense. It's like, are you going to try and cut through that chain that's like an inch thick, or are you going to cut through that hand that's going to go like butter?
Yeah.
So I got a kick out of that. And for me, the highlight of the entire episode was what I call Amanda Acid Face. Just that sequence, because that's really where the pieces start falling into place for us and for him, that he has the flashback of, he was in the house and then he heard the kid, through the vent, and then he went down into the basement, which was probably a place that he was told he could never, ever go. But he went anyway, and he finds the one kid. And he, I think the kid was dead, and he puts it down, right? He does the stab inside of the head thing. And then the other kid, Nora's son, is still alive and is chained up, in the corner. And he goes and he opens up the irons, and that's how we get the irons, right? And then Amanda comes down and it's like, you shouldn't be down here, oh no, and that leads to they struggle and they fight, and he ends up chaining her wrist and then his wrist, so he's like, you can't get away, and then she slips and falls into that bucket of whatever it was. I really wish they would have told us what that was. Was it battery acid? Was it, lye? Was it some corrosive, antifreeze? I don't know. Whatever it was, because it was like this kind of like pea soup green stuff that was like just sitting on the floor in this bucket. You know, and you're like, what is that? Why is it there? Shouldn't you push it to the side so you don't kick it when you walk by? All these things. But again, it works great because she goes right in it, and whatever it is, it's freaking intense because it eats her face in like 1 second.
It sure does.
And then I thought that was just a wonderful, gross, amazeballs Greg Nicotero K&B effect. That just was amazing. And again, huge piece of the puzzle, because now we know how she got to be that way, how he got to be chained to her, and all those questions we had when the show opened. That sequence answered a bunch of them. So, but yeah, that was my favorite moment. That whole kind of dead, and that was fun. So
yeah, yes, I agree. I wonder if my immediate reaction to the whatever that acid was was that they were using it to dispose of the bodies somehow, to help dispose of the bodies. Because, yes, those two kids were in that little area, but I don't think this is a new thing. You know what I mean? Like, I think it's like it's happened before.
That could be.
So I wonder if that was there to help get rid of any of the evidence, to help him out. So and again, this was one of those things that, was not explained. There's a couple of different reasons it could have been, like you said, like the taking the car apart. It could have just been battery acid or something drained from the vehicle. So it really could have been a couple of different things. And I think this was one of those instances where they made that choice, that anthology choice of it's there. There's a couple of plausible reasons. We don't have to explain it. It's more interesting to have people imagine. And I agree. Like, I agree with you. Like, it would have been cool to know, but I think it's okay we didn't. And everything else was great. If this was a bad episode, we would have been like, and why the hell was that shit there? Like, because that's how we, you're a little extra, you're not necessarily as forgiving when the stuff isn't supportive of the material. So in this case, it was so much better.
Like you said, it was something where at the end of the day, we're both like, it would have been really cool if they would have said something, but I'm totally fine with them not.
Exactly.
And you're right. And it's because the writing was strong enough that, they got the benefit of the doubt from us.
Yeah, exactly.
If the knuckleheads had tried to do this, we would have hated it. And first of all, it wouldn't have been written half as well. But if they tried to do something similar, we would have been like, and they didn't explain this, and they didn't explain this, and they didn't explain that. We would have just ripped it to shreds. So. Because they have built up no trust with us. They have no credit with us in terms of storytelling. So, we're immediately going to be like, well, this is going to suck.
Yeah. Yeah. So and thankfully in this case, it didn't matter. It would have been an awesome extra detail to have, like, ooh, someone left that there and oh my God, he was able to use it. But it didn't end up being needed to know because the other stuff supported the rest of the material, which was nice for a change to have that happen. Anything else with episode 5 that we want to discuss?
I don't think so. Other than I just, apparently that village where he was, that he was the only black guy. Because I don't know if you looked through the crowd there, but yeah, there were a lot of white faces there. So I was kind of like, not so ethnically diverse up there in Maine, apparently.
I would like to say that my mother lives in she's just below Central Maine. She's up there. Her, like, I joke about how my neighbors are cornfields. Her neighbors are pine trees, and lots and lots of pine trees. So she's way up there. And I have visited and been there many times and have traveled outside of her little burg that she lives in. Very small. There's one blinking light in her little village there. And that is a very accurate description.
Is it? Okay, yeah.
I ethnic diversity of and this is much further up in the way they describe them, and I felt that whole situation was very believable. There is a section of the of Maine that definitely has a French background, the proximity to Canada right there, and yes, I don't believe it's as ethnically or racially diverse as we would like other areas to be. I think that was
so that was not stretching. That was sort of, hey, that's how it really is.
No, but I think what was cool was I think that little village area wasn't very diverse, but it certainly seemed like until they were ready to kill him, they were accepting of him being there.
Yeah, I mean, they welcomed him in, right? Yeah, you know, I mean, they did. That was never even an issue, you know. They were just like, hey, you know, we helped. You needed help, so we helped you. And you're right up to the part where they thought he was killing all their children, they were quite neighborly.
Yes, they were. I did have one funny thing that I thought of after the fact that I want to make sure we discuss. So the actor that played Davon, that's Jesse T. Usher. And if you watch The Boys, which I know you do, you recognize him. He plays A-Train. So I think it's hilarious that the other role that he's most well known for is a character that his thing is he runs really fast. And in this thing he does for Walking Dead, he loses his leg.
It's right. And he kind of like hobbles around for the rest of the show.
Yes. So I just thought that the tragic irony of that just had to be stated. I mean, come on. That's some funny stuff right there. Come on.
Yeah. Well, yeah. You have to think that was, you know, that was done. I don't want to say on purpose, but like once they cast that guy, and maybe like the writer wrote that with him in mind already and put it in there, but you know they had to be like, oh my god, this is so funny, you know.
Of course,
they have to be aware of it. So I did laugh too, or I'm like, well, that's funny. You know?
I mean, yes, why wouldn't you?
the speedster who, you know, can barely walk. I love it.
It's perfect. It was perfect. I really loved it. All right, so I think that kind of covers everything that we wanted to talk about for episode 5, and we covered all of episode 4. I don't think we have anything else to cover. So that being said, folks, we are going to go ahead and take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to take a bake or a break, whatever, but we're calling it a break. And when we come back, we're going to discuss the listener feedback we received and also talk about some news and some things coming up on the podcast.
So stick around or tick around. We'll be right back.
The following is an emergency action message. Civil authorities have identified a biological threat that they deem credible. This threat could potentially affect the entire continental United States.
The dead are returning to life and attacking the living.
911, what's your emergency?
There's a man off bed and he's attacking another man. Looks like he's biting him, like on the arm.
The initial signs are puzzling, unclear.
Getting pulled out of their cars and thrown to the ground. It looks like the bus passengers are biting their victims.
Soon, however, the reality is clear and undeniable.
The crisis involving the recently dead continues. Parliament today passed a law that requires all bodies of the recently deceased to be registered and turned...
Toxic Bag Productions has captured the sounds of the zombie apocalypse and brought them to your gaming table. Background ambiences, zombie attacks, and radio transmissions that set the scene for your modern zombie adventure. Download MP3s from drivethrurpg.com or toxicbag.com.
Hey, this is Patricia Tallman, and you're listening to the Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. Don't forget to always aim for the head, because body shots just don't work, and I should know.
Hey, everybody, we're back. If you want to hear even more from the amazing and talented Patricia Tallman, we can help you out with that, because all you need to do is back up a few episodes to episode 262 and hear our interview with her.
I know.
It's that simple. Yeah.
And it's pretty amazeballs.
It is a pretty amazeballs interview, if we do say so ourselves. Notwithstanding the total fan people that interviewed her, she was great. The other two people, I don't know about them.
Yeah. We had nothing to do with it. It's all her. But yeah, it
exactly.
is amazeballs. So yeah.
All right, so we're going to jump into the feedback that we received for both episode 4 and then episode 5. So Steve, why don't you get started, and then we'll sort of go back and forth here.
All right. Well, we start as we normally do at the international desk.
Yes.
And we have some feedback. This is just for episode 4, so just for Amy/Dr. Everett. And this comes from our pal Andy from Germany.
Hey, Andy.
Hello, Andy. How are you? And this comes, as usual, via the email. And he says, hello, Diana and Steve. The German and the English versions of The Walking Dead usually aired at the same time. Then AMC on their own streaming service started to air the English episodes earlier. I often wait, though, till your podcast is out before I watch an episode, so it's not so much of a technical problem. And then he put the little smiley face. And I think he was talking about one of his previous emails. He mentioned that it wasn't coming in German with like a dubbed German or maybe subtitled German version. And so we were kind of speculating how that worked. And so I think he was just sort of giving us the skinny on how the episodes come out over there across the pond, as it were.
Correct.
He goes on to say, by the way, I don't dislike the idea of episodes about characters we already know in general. What I'd like to watch would be what happened to Magna's group before they met Judith, or the Savior War from the perspective of Barbara and her children, which I think that would be really interesting. Something more creative than the backstory of Alpha or Negan, which is kind of the two we've gotten, right?
Yes.
So far.
Yeah.
Although I have to say the Negan episode, I really liked that one. I thought that was pretty cool. About episode 4, I like the general idea. The perspective of a scientist on walkers. The problem is that he is talking nonsense. There is a specific definition of a species. A car may move around and kill animals like a wolf, but calling a car Lupus vulvus, the rolling wolf, still doesn't make a car a species. Same goes for a corpse. A corpse is not a species because it's moving around and killing stuff. Dude, I don't know enough about science to say whether that's right or not, but I like it, so I'm with you.
Yeah.
Another thing I don't buy is his coat. For deceiving a walker, you have to move, sound, and smell like a walker. The Whisperer mask is not to deceive walkers, but to deceive humans. Greetings from Germany, Andy. Yeah, we didn't really talk about his, coat of Technicolor ghoul skin. And it was a weird story idea. I just kind of went, oh, okay. So the guy who made it kind of had the Whisperer idea, but he went for a coat.
Yeah.
But I kind of agree with Andy in that, even though you're a Whisperer has a Whisperer mask on, you can't act like a human.
Yes.
You still have to do the kind of shamble and walk, and he really didn't. He just kind of pulled the hood over his face and just kind of freeze, and the walkers would just walk right by. So again, I think it was an interesting idea. I don't know if they really thought it all the way through in terms of the execution.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. I mean, if they'd spent 10 seconds for her to be like, ugh, what is that jacket you wear? It stinks. Mm-hmm. Then we'd know.
Yeah. Right.
Or, for whatever. Or if he adopted any kind of movement pattern that was like them, right. Then maybe. But no, there was none of that. So agreed, Andy. Stupid coat.
And science wrong.
Yeah, science wrong. Stupid coat. Ugh. Next up, we heard from our pal Amelia from the Pitney and Amelia's Bitch and Boutique podcast. And
Hello, Amelia.
Hello, Amelia. Amelia sent her thoughts in via email. She says, well, hello there. Now, this one was way more my speed. What has always been my favorite part about The Walking Dead is the way this universe approaches morality and how our view of good and evil can shift when we're under stress. And this episode of this new series was a great take on that. I loved getting to see a scientist who lost his way and got so engrossed in his research, they forgot who his research was for. Like I said to my husband, he's going to sit there and pat himself on the back watching these folks get slaughtered going, called it. And for what? So that the next time it happens, he can be even more certain as he allows another group to die in the name of research. It's like how a surgeon thinks that they're God. This guy is the flip side of the same coin, only he's the god of natural science and prime directive. A little something for the Trekkies. It did help that they cast Anthony Edwards because I get extra schmoopy about him. I do too. So it kept me having sympathy for the dude, even when he was so utterly wrong. And Poppy Lou, oh my God, it took me a while to realize that was the cute little blackjack dealer from Hacks. Yo, she crushed it. 10 out of 10. There you go. Well,
all right.
This episode hit for Amelia. That's
Amelia
for sure.
Found one she likes.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
So glad. Yeah. Anyway, thanks for writing in, Amelia. Always a pleasure.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I don't necessarily agree with everything, but I love the conviction. And if you like it, man. That's the best part about art.
Yes.
It affects everybody differently, and dig what you dig.
Absolutely.
All right, so our next bit of feedback comes from Alma Contreras. Hello, Alma. And
hey, Alma.
This is awesome because she is becoming a regular. I love it.
Yeah.
And she sent this in via the Facebook, and she says, I'm not digging these Tales episodes. This current one was a boring documentary. And then she has the, I think, what's it like, the emoji of rubbing your head or something?
Oh, no. It's really hard to see. It's the one where it's sleeping. Those are Z's.
Oh, those are
coming
Z's.
Off of the
Okay,
head. Yeah.
So yeah, this literally, I get it. So this
Just
literally
snoozing.
put her to sleep. So not your cup of tea, Alma? Well, that's unfortunate. Although I think, you and I, Diana, were kind of right there with you in that, didn't do much for us either.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so that's all the feedback we got for episode 4. I'm going to blame the holiday weekend on that one. And then episode 5, we start out with another email from Amelia from Amelia's podcast. So, hey, Amelia, thanks for writing in twice. She writes in
so quick.
Yeah, exactly. So for this one, she says, hi guys, before I get into my comments on this episode, a couple of things. First, yes, I definitely email to avoid spoiling things for people online. If you guys remember, we made a comment last week that we were thankful because Amelia always emails because she probably already has an email into us for episode 6. She probably watched it today and is going to send us either today or tomorrow. And I haven't watched the episode yet, which is great because then we don't get spoiled when she sends it. So I think we thanked her last week for that. So yes. I'm glad she listened and realized that. So first, yes, I definitely email to avoid spoiling things for people online. I don't even like posting things that are too spoilery the night an episode airs, just because I know not everyone can avoid social media completely just to avoid certain shows getting spoiled. Good for you. And y'all asked last time why I thought a riverboat didn't seem safe. I think it's because we've seen walkers walk up on shore right out of the ocean because they don't need to breathe. So water doesn't automatically equal walker repellent for me unless it's moving really fast. But also, it doesn't seem like much of a home base from the sense of growing food. Maybe early on it would work because you could float downstream, anchor, and go on a run to whatever town you were nearest, rinse and repeat. But that's just opening you up to unfamiliar territory every time. I don't know. I like a housing community with high walls and solar panels. So I'm right there with you. I would want the same. So again, this is episode 5 about Davon, and she says, so this one was interesting, and I've only watched it once as of this writing, and I'm sure if I watched it again, I'll feel a bit better about it. But right now I'm still confused. Like, my husband and I just had a literal argument as soon as the episode ended about whether or not those women were sisters or a mother and daughter, and what relation the young man was to them. I had a lot of confusion because they hired 2 actresses who, to me, may as well have been twins because we kept forgetting which one was which. Maybe that was on purpose to keep us off balance. I don't know. And I had a weird Salem witch trials lynching feeling about how the townsfolk came for Davon, which added a lot to how tense that scene played out. But then I was startled by the sudden cut to a black woman yelling in French that made me wonder if she was added in later to lessen that feeling, because yikes. That was a really strong, you ain't from around here, you boy, scene. Anyway, I didn't not like it, but I was confused by it a lot. And I'm sure if I watched it again, I would enjoy it. Except, was it me, or was it not really part of the Walking Dead universe? Her talking walker body was just his conscience and messed up brain anyway. Excited for next week's Bruja episode. So, interesting. Those are some good thoughts. And I agree. I can see where some of that stuff could get confusing to folks. And like you said you thought maybe you weren't paying attention enough the first time. And I know I was really paying attention because I was like, I have no idea what's going on here. So I don't know if that's what it was for Amelia or not, but I do encourage you to watch it one more time. Please do. Yes. And then report back next week and let us know what you thought.
Just write a nice 500-word essay.
And let us know.
And make sure you show your work.
Yeah, please. You have to show your work, please.
Yeah, footnote properly, please. You will be graded for that. So
exactly. Use AP style. Thank you. Thanks again for writing in, Amelia.
That's
we
awesome.
Look forward to it. Yeah,
that's awesome. I love it. All right, moving on. And I know that you're going to be shocked, but we got our next piece of feedback from Alma Contreras.
Yay!
It's so great. So she, again, she's becoming a regular. I think it's so cool. And she sent this again via the Facebook, and she says, this one was a strange one. So far, I'm not really liking these tales. I thought that if I watched it a second time, I would get it, but I still did not like it. I felt like it took too long to show us what had happened with Davon. I wasn't too thrilled with the style they used to show his hazy memories like an old film. All it did was confuse me, LOL. And what about him imagining that the walker was talking, LOL. Just not a good story. It was just meh to me. So not a fan, which, Alma, I'm sorry that it didn't resonate with you the way it did for Diana and I, because we really think this one was pretty good, and it's too bad that you did not have that same opinion.
Yeah, but thank you for writing in, because all opinions
I love it.
Are necessary. So next up, we got just a quickie from our pal Alex Baelish, who left us a note via the Facebook, and he said it was super creepy. And I agree. I totally agree. So thanks for letting us know your short little thoughts on episode 5, Alex. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Welcome to the club, Alex.
Yeah.
All right, so our last piece of feedback comes from our new Facebook pal, Karen Cohen.
Hey, Karen.
And Karen, hello. And she got in touch with us, I think after the D episode. I think that was when she first sent something over, right?
Yeah.
Because
that's possible.
Because I made the comment of, is she related to Lauren Cohen?
Oh,
And when you kind of chuckled and went, I don't think so. And anyway, yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, she specifically responded because I wanted people to know that we were covering both. I sent out like a picture that has both the Dr. Everett and Amy and the Davon, information in there, and to send us your feedback. So this one is actually, she gave us a little bit of thoughts on both of the episodes.
Both episodes,
so yeah.
Okay. So she starts out and she goes, unfortunately, I am not related to Lauren Cohen. Darn it. But she goes, that would be cool. And I agree. That would be cool. What's McConaughey's line from Dazed and Confused? It'd be cooler if you were. But anyway.
Exactly.
She goes on to say, I guess I'm going to eat my words from last time because I wasn't a super fan of either of these episodes. I thought the Amy chick was super annoying. This is the episode that's filmed 35 years into the ZA, right? I feel like Amy should have been a little better equipped to take care of herself, having known nothing else than surviving. Did she even tell her group that a horde was probably going to run through their camp? I know, right? That's what I thought. It was pretty ridiculous when the doctor held her back from trying to save her friends. What BS. He was just a bad, grumpier version of Dale from The Walking Dead. And then she goes on to say, as for Devon, meh, I get what they're trying to do, but it felt pretty whatever. Those people are just really wanted someone to kill. Oh, sorry. Those people just really wanted someone to kill, and they got it. Looking forward to the podcast.
Nice. Excellent. Thank you everybody for writing in. I know it's always weird when we like take a week off and then we get a bunch of feedback. So I'm really, really excited that all of you were engaged enough with those 2 episodes and you wanted to let us know what you felt. So thanks again, everybody who wrote in. Excellent. So coming up next week is I can't believe we're here already. It's the season finale of the first season of Tales of the Walking Dead. Now, of course, it's only a 6-episode run, so it went a little quick. So episode 6's title is called La Doña. And the description we got is a haunting tale of an apocalypse traumatized couple who may or may not be tormented by a haunted house. Frightening memories coupled with inexplicable phenomena in the house take a toll on the couple's psyche and their relationship. Interesting.
So I wonder if this is going to be similar to Blair Gina, where there is like a totally non-ghoul related supernatural element thrown in.
Interesting.
It's going to be interesting to see what they do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very curious, very, very curious. So we'll have to wait and see for next week. Other stuff coming up. I don't know if you're aware, but in just 3 weeks, there's going to be some new Walking Dead content. In just 3 weeks, we're going to get the final portion of the final season for season 11, the final trimester. The baby is about to be born, is what we're saying.
And it's going to be stillborn.
Oh no! Why would you say that?
It's going to be a zombie baby, like the Zack
Snyder.
Oh yes,
zombie baby, definitely for sure. So that's coming up. Obviously, we are very excited about that. I do want a 2 cents here for AMC. They finally released the actual date that the new Interview with the Vampire series is going to start.
Mm-hmm.
Guess when it starts? On the same day that the final season for Walking Dead starts.
Mm-hmm.
So, does this mean, AMC, that you are going to have a TV show run right after Walking Dead and try and snag as many people as you can?
Oh, you know it.
And are we now going to have to wait an hour for Talking Dead every week because of it?
Yeah, pretty much. Hey, I got to wait till Thursday, okay?
It's ridiculous. They've gotten feedback from so many people about it. I really wish that they should have done this with like the middle portion of episodes or whatever. This finale, the fact that they're not centering all of their Sunday night programming around Walking Dead for the final 8 episodes of the show that you could say Mad Men and Breaking Bad helped make this channel, but Walking Dead has been like the flagship. I mean, 11 years, 11 seasons. Yeah. Breaking Bad had 6. And Mad Men had 7. And Walking Dead has had 11 seasons plus spinoffs. But I'm just so irritated that they would not just do the episode and then the Talking Dead right after. Now, here's the thing. Will it maybe be after Talking Dead? It's possible, but I doubt it. I doubt it strongly. It's going to be Walking Dead, it's going to be Interview, and then it's going to be Talking Dead after. I'll put money on it now.
That's a done deal. Yeah, absolutely. That's just AMC though. That's just the way that they operate, and you gotta. It's a necessary evil. I mean, there's no way around it. So, like I said, it doesn't matter to me. I can't watch Talking Dead till Thursday, so I don't care.
Well, I care, and it upsets me greatly.
I guess. It's funny because when you first put that in there, I thought you were upset because you were really looking forward to Interview with the Vampire, and yet it was on the same time. And you're like, I got it. And my comment was like, I guess if you're like Interview with the Vampire, it's a problem. But for me, I hate that book, so I don't care.
And don't get me wrong, I was interested in trying out the series because I'm curious to see what they do, that, because it's one of those things that, like, the book had a lot of detail. Mm-hmm. Is it better served by a series than a movie? I guess we'll see. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I'm excited too because the guy who's playing Louis or whatever is he's an actor from Game of Thrones that was really good, and I'm excited to see him take and he had a very consequential but a smaller role on the show.
Peter Dinklage.
And so it's nice. No, not at all. But it's nice to see him in a much bigger. You're so funny.
Are there dice?
You're trying to make short jokes there. I see what you're doing. Yeah. So I'm excited to see him in a bigger role, in a bigger show, etc. So I was curious about that. But AMC, you're pissing me off. Anyway, so moving away from that. A bunch of really great movie film fest stuff going on. First off, Steve, over the Labor Day weekend, you went to the Stephen King Film Fest they had in Chicago. They had a couple of really great movies there.
They had a whole bunch of really great movies. Yeah. I only went to two of them. I didn't go to the whole festival. It started Friday night and ran all the way through, I think, Sunday or Monday. And yeah, it was called The Creep Show. And it was a whole Stephen King series, and they showed a bunch of his films, and what was amazing was they showed The Shining on Friday, which was great to see in the theater.
Jealous.
And then they followed that up by showing Dr. Sleep right after it. So, I thought it was kind of amusing that the way they introduced The Shining as it's the prequel to Dr. Sleep.
Nice.
So that was fun. And then they showed it's a whole bunch of great Stephen King movies. They showed 1408 with John Cusack and Sam Jackson, and they showed Christine, the John Carpenter. Christine, which is a wonderful movie, and that was cool in an actual film, a 35 millimeter print. And then they showed on Saturday night, they showed the original Creep Show. And nice. I was super excited to go to that because I've seen that movie 100 times. I've never seen it in the movie theater on film. I've only seen it on video and so on. So I went, and one of the things that they kind of added, I did not know this right away, was that they had Greg Nicotero as a guest.
Nice.
And he came on for a little Q&A after the program, after the movie was over. And, Greg Nicotero's awesome. He's super fun and friendly, and he talked a lot about the movie and how it influenced him. And it was the first movie set he ever went on when he was a kid. And, his parents knew George Romero, and so George invited him to come, and so he remembers going on the sets of Creep Show, and it was telling those kind of stories. And he did like a little impromptu, like have everybody clap for your favorite episode of Creep Show to figure out which one the audience liked the best. And the crate was the winner. I liked Something to Tide You Over, which is the Leslie Nielsen, Ted Danson, Bury You in the Sand one.
Yes.
That's my personal favorite, but the crate's awesome too, don't get me wrong, and so anyway, one of the things he said at the very end was he mentioned Walking Dead's coming back for the final slate of episodes, and he said, and this was so cool, it's a little bit of a scoop, a little bit of something for you guys that I'm not sure how public this is yet, but he said, keep your eyes open this year for a lot of what he called special Easter egg walkers. And they're doing the great what's the best way to describe it? Horror serial killer monster characters are going to show up as walkers. And the example he gave is that I believe he said in the very first episode here coming up, Daryl kills a Freddy Krueger zombie.
Oh, what a good job, Greg. Way to go with the homages.
Yeah. So we'll have to. So keep your eyes open for that. Daryl kills him. I'm sure he's going to have the sweater, right?
Yes.
The red and the green sweater, and probably the hat, and maybe one of his hands will be screwed up and have kind of like some type of homage to the glove.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like but anyway, then throughout the rest of the episodes, and he didn't go into any other specifics other than to say they're going to be in there. Just keep your eyes open. So I thought that was really cool. You know, we got a little scoopage there. So yeah, everybody keep your eyes peeled, and we'll have to say, did you see it? Did you see it?
Yeah. And I'm sure there'll be ones that we don't see that other people will talk about online. So everybody keep your eyes peeled. That'll be great. I'm so excited. Yeah. Awesome. Well, that sounded like a lot of fun.
It was.
Sad and jealous that I had to.
It was unfortunate that you couldn't go because you would have enjoyed the shinning as much as we did. But fortunately we're going back to the Music Box.
And why would that be?
Again, we're coming into, as the song says, the most wonderful time of the year, and that is of course Halloween. And so now all of the networks are setting up their, horror movie marathons that they're going to run all October. AMC has posted most of the films they're going to show. Shudder, I think, has theirs up. All of them are kind of coming out with it. And one of the things that's happening locally here is the Music Box is doing a 24-hour horror movie marathon.
Nice.
It's going to be so fun. And it starts Saturday, October 22nd at 12 o'clock noon, and will run all the way through to 12 o'clock noon on Sunday. And I believe tickets are $30 for the entire festival, for the whole 24 hours. Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, if you see 3 or 4 movies, you've totally made your money back, because a movie ticket, a regular movie ticket, is like $13 to $16, right, depending on where you go and what kind of movie and all that stuff. And they haven't announced the full lineup yet. They've only announced a couple of things that they're showing, but one of the movies they're showing is a movie that Bill Hintzman made in the 80s, and I want to say it's called Flesh Eaters or Flesh Eater. And Bill Hintzman was the cameraman for George Romero on the original Night of the Living Dead, and he also is the cemetery ghoul from the very beginning. So he's like the very first modern zombie we ever see. He's the one that's coming to get you, Barbara, right? He's the one that kills Johnny in the cemetery. That's Bill Hintzman. So he went on later on and he made this separate film. I've only heard about it. I've never seen it, so I'm really looking forward to seeing it. I'm sure it's going to be awful, but I don't care. It's going to be great. So I'm really looking forward to going. I've gone to a couple of these from other places in the city that do the marathons. They're a lot of fun. You can kind of come and go as you please. People bring pillows and blankets, and they kind of lay down in the aisles and stuff, and you sleep, and it really is fun, particularly if you love film and if you love horror movies. It's a chance just to kind of just go and just have a whole day of it, just boom, 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 and it's always eclectic stuff that like Flesh Eater that you just haven't seen before or rarely seen. So I'm looking forward to it. If you're in the Chicago area, tickets are available now. You can go to musicbox.com, musicboxtheater.com, I believe is their website. And again, a general admission to the 24-hour thing is $30. So definitely worth it.
Amazing. And speaking of the Halloween, you were saying the build up too. On Halloween weekend itself, check your local listings. If you have a part of the chain Regal Cinemas, if you have one within driving distance of your house, take a look and see, because Regal Cinemas is hosting for Halloween weekend a bunch of different showings, and it's great because you're not stuck to just going one night. They're doing it, I believe, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Oh yeah.
And it's Dawn of the Dead, and it's in 3D, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which I will see Dawn of the Dead in a movie theater every time, twice on Sunday. But I'm just curious because Dawn of the Dead was not shot as a 3D movie.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so how are they gonna do that?
Yeah. I'm like, how's this gonna work? But I was fortunate enough to go see Friday the 13th Part 3 in 3D a few weeks ago. That the Music Box had for the 40th anniversary of that, and I'd never seen that movie in 3D, and the 3D was phenomenal. So I am like all in on 3D movies right now. So I definitely am excited and interested and curious to see what exactly Dawn of the Dead's going to look like in 3D.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah, so we already got our tickets for that, so we'll be there.
Oh yeah. And then you made some sort of purchase that you want to regale us about.
I do. Very quickly. I know we're running long here as usual, but when we went to Flashback Weekend, just a few short weeks ago, it feels like, Jody and our friend Jody I have always lamented with her that there's never anyone who has quality purses and bags for women.
Oh, I'm right there with you.
Yeah. That are made with, good material that, there's plenty of people that have bags out there, but they're not great. And a lot of them tend toward, when they do like purses or backpacks for gals, they tend toward the more goth gal kind of feel, rather
they're like
than
coffin shaped and weird, like stuff that you guys are like, I would never use this.
Yeah, or like bats or spiders or skulls, whatever. And they're
super
very general.
Cool.
Yeah, they're nice. They're not hitting the whole genre. There are plenty of women who go to these cons that like the horror movies, and they also need a bag to carry their things around. So we came upon this one vendor, and the name of the vendor is Deviant Threads. And I immediately was drawn in because she had this really nice leather purse, like handbag, and it was anytime I see anything that's the Outlook hotel from The Shining, the rug pattern, we all are like, ooh, and we get sucked in, whatever it is, t-shirt, shirt, towels, dish towels, whatever it may be. And this was a purse, and Jody and I were like, ooh, and got very excited. Her things were really quality made. They were gorgeous. And then she also had some messenger bags, and there was a variety, and she has tons of stuff, hitting all kinds of great horror themes, movies, patterns, you name it. She had this really great eclectic collection, and they were all very well made. And they were like normal shapes, like a normal shaped purse and a normal shaped messenger bag. She did have a messenger bag, which I've been in the market for like a crossbody, like wear over the shoulder thing. And she had one that had like a screen printing of the Outlook, the rug pattern that I've been looking for. But then like it was in like this square, and then the rest of the fabric was black. And I was like, I would love to have a messenger bag like that. And then I pointed to the purse. I said, but completely in the pattern like the purse is. And she like walked up right behind me and was like, well, I do custom work. And I was like, oh, well, that's great. And I immediately thought, oh, it's custom. It's out of my price range or whatever. And she was like, it would be the same cost as what is here. It would just take longer. It's the same the cost of it is this. These are just pre-made and you can just grab it. You can do something custom with me. You're just going to have to wait for if she doesn't have the fabric or whatever. So I take her card and I'm like, you will be hearing from me. And right after the convention was over, I emailed her right away. We talked back and forth about what fabrics I wanted. And, you're able to pick from a variety of different, like the hardware, like what color you want the metal of the hardware. And the strap and everything. So it was a great process. She was so easy to work with. Her name is Stacy. She's wonderful. And she, we got everything taken care of, and She said it would ship like the week of Labor Day, which was last week while I was on vacation. It arrived on Friday while I was gone. I was so excited when we got home on Saturday. I like teared the package open and whatever. It is gorgeous. It is wonderfully made. It's worth every penny that I spent on it. And I cannot say enough about this. I will include some pictures on the feed. So whether you follow us on Twitter or Facebook, I'm going to throw some pictures out there and some links for you to get over to Stacy at Deviant Arts. It's gorgeous. The whole bag is the pattern, and the inside, the lining on the inside, because you're going to have a different fabric, is the typeset, the all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. And even the extra little bit that I was not expecting, and it's such a cute little addition that she did, there's like a little zipper pouch on the inside, and the hardware on the zipper pouch is not an ordinary zipper pull. It's an actual hatchet, an axe. Yes. So I'm so over the moon. It's made so well. It's gorgeously done. I cannot say enough about it. I can't wait to sort of share the pictures and point everybody in the direction of it. I hope she gets tons of business out of it. It's just wonderful, and I can't wait for you to see it in person. I shared the pictures with you guys, and it looks great. But wait until it's phenomenal. It's great. I'm so happy with it. I can't even tell you.
That's so awesome. I'm so happy that you're happy. You always hope that when you do something like that custom, that it's not going to be crap, right? But you're like, is this going to work out? And then it's so great when it does, and you're like, oh my God, this is great.
And honestly, it did not take long. There was a specific version of the fabric on the inside that I wanted versus one she had available. So I had to wait a little bit longer. But honestly, from the day we did Flashback, and I saw it, and up until now, it's like, what, a month?
A month, yeah.
And that's to make a custom bag. That's amazing. Absolutely amazing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. When I got the custom potato sack Jason, I talked with the gal in November, and she said, hit me up after the holidays because she's be busy. So I actually ordered it in January, and it took a while. It took a couple months for her to be able to do it. And I'm super happy with it. It looks great, but it was not nearly as quick as you got this thing. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I was so impressed. And my only thing that I wanted was I wanted to get it before we went to the next convention, which isn't until November. So that was my only sort of thing. And obviously I want to use it right away.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
But clearly, like, it totally exceeded my expectations for getting a custom bag. It's incredible. So
that's awesome.
So thank you, Stacy. The bag is gorgeous. I love it. I can't wait to shout about it on social media and point people in your direction. And I hope you get some business out of it. I think it'll be great.
Yay!
Anything else we need to discuss before we wrap this puppy up?
No, just that, like you said, we're getting close. Only 3 more weeks.
No! So we're going to have some pretty awesome content coming up soon. Not that this isn't great, but, the flagship is always, it's different.
Oh,
it's a different feeling.
It's going to be so great to get into that and try and figure out how the hell Maggie doesn't kill Negan enough for them to go on their own show.
Yeah, and how does Daryl not die, and how does Carol not die?
I was going to point out, have you seen what AMC's doing on social media now? Their campaign.
Not so much, I don't think.
Like, when you've been out, so I understand it. What they're doing is they have a shot of each character. So you'll see Daryl, and he's looking at you, and then it animates, and he slowly rots and turns into a zombie.
Oh yeah, they did that with Entertainment, the magazine, Entertainment magazine. I think it was different versions of a cover or something like that. I think.
This is all online stuff. So they have Negan, they have Carol, they have Daryl, they have Maggie. So all of the main people, Eugene, I saw him, and again, it's sort of it's kind of like the old Haunted Mansion at Disney, that the painting is a young guy, and then it slowly ages, and eventually is a skeleton. Same kind of idea
Yeah.
where like it animates and like you just see their face turns gray and parts of it fall off and it gets, they ghoul out. And again, it's just kind of the
It's
final
super cool.
season. Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, I noticed that last week. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So
Yeah, super cool. Huh. So we're getting very excited to cover it, and it's coming up so soon.
I know.
But again, we're going to be covering the season finale next week. We'll take a week off, and then we'll get back into it. We're pretty excited about it all. But that's going to do it for us this week, guys. Thanks again for listening, as always. We look forward to talking to you again. And as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
Don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because body shots just don't work. To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
So there you go. Now it's going to inform you that we're recording.
Wait. Diana's recording the call.
There's the privacy info.